What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and we're here to recap Week 12 of the NFL season, and what a week it was. I felt like coming in, a lot of matchups between teams with pretty lopsided records, and it ended up being a pretty great slate of football, especially in that noon, 1 o'clock window. You had the Panthers get a close game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Couldn't quite get it done, but man, Bryce Young looked great. The Browns played a bout in the snow against Pittsburgh, won that game. We had, the Drake May, not his fault game where they kept getting into 3rd and long just because of penalties. And the Vikings and Bears went to overtime. I mean, just an absolute great window of football. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday night?
I'm doing like dog shit. I'm not even going to lie. So it's Friday night. I'm pretty excited because it's college football and I got all my buddies coming over, which isn't always a guarantee, to really, get everybody. And we're going to go out for its big time Ohio State game. Doesn't get much better than that. But I got a little bit of a headache. Okay, I'm probably just going to take a Advil or whatever, Tylenol, whatever I got. And I take an Excedrin, which has caffeine in it.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And I did not sleep. It's not that I slept 1 hour. I did not sleep. And I battled through it. I went and saw the game and then passed out at 5 p.m. But then I woke back up at 11 p.m. after sleeping for 6 hours. It's what do you even do? So I blundered my weekend. Not that it was terrible, because football was good, but I'm mad at myself. You had to understand, I thought something was wrong with me laying in my bed. I'm am I this nervous for the Ohio State-Indiana game? Holy shit. That's what I thought. I'm maybe I am daunted. Oh my God.
IU's got him.
It was ridiculous. But then honestly, it was a relief to figure out that Excedrin had caffeine because I thought something was seriously wrong with me. So I'm pretty tired for this episode. I won't lie.
Excedrin does have caffeine, but I bet it did fix your headache because it is.
It did.
It is.
It works. That's why I took it. I'm it's perfect. It's easy. I just didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, it does.
Why I don't take Excedrin, because it has caffeine in it.
My weekend also had some adversity. My Wi-Fi was out when we tried to record our scouting report video this week. It turns out my Wi-Fi was the most out that anybody's Wi-Fi has probably ever been, because I had not paid my Wi-Fi bill in over a year.
Oh my God.
I thought I was on auto pay, and it was not. So it had been a long time since I had paid. And also, the cord that connects, the Wi-Fi to the outside power lines, I guess. I don't know exactly how it all works. The transformer, whatever it is that is out there, the cords have gotten cut by somebody in our alley. So not only was I a year overdue, the cord was also severed. So if I was trying to connect to Wi-Fi,
like those two events were correlated. I feel like you not paying, they sent a tech out and they were like, just cut his shit.
Cut his shit. He's so overdue.
I think they tried to silence Theo Ash.
Oh, I
think it was.
So I pay in yearly increments, not monthly. And after I got Google Fiber installed, they sent me an invoice in August of 2023. I paid that invoice yesterday.
Damn.
Gotcha. I actually did something similar to myself.
What did you do?
I thought I had my electric on auto pay, and because I switched over accounts, I had the old account on auto pay, and I was like, this doesn't seem $0 this month. That doesn't seem quite right. And I figured it out, and it was your electric is going to be shut off in 6 days when I finally got it on the right account. So I was all right, sweet.
Yeah.
Yes. So that happened.
I'm going to be checking all of my accounts because I'm getting a new credit card, and I went to the gas station because my band had a show, so I was getting gas, and I went to swipe my card and it declined, and it didn't decline. It said, go see the cashier. So I go to see the cashier and I swipe my card in there, and the cashier's like, oh, your card declined. So I was like, what? So I used my other card and it went through. And then I get a call from my bank and a message in the app that's like, your card has been compromised. We're sending you a new one. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know what happened. My mom thinks I got hit with like one of those skimmers and my bank picked up on it. So shout out US Bank, sponsor the show, I guess. But
yeah, sponsor.
I'll have to check my.
Yeah. But
let's talk about some football.
Yeah,
what game do you want to start with, guys?
Let's start with the Thursday night game. Your Browns, Blaiden. It's been a while since they've been worth talking about, and I just want to get it out of the way.
I want to start with this. George Pickens after the game was like, "Oh, this team sucks. They only won because of the snow." Brother, you both played in the snow. Like, what is this idea that the Browns got lucky that it snowed and somehow they were better off for it? I'm pretty sure, like, I haven't gone and checked this, but I'm pretty sure the Browns were playing better when the weather, because the first quarter was fine weather-wise, and then it got worse progressively throughout the game. The Browns started playing worse as the weather got worse, I'm pretty sure. Like, when the Steelers started, coming back and looking like they were getting momentum to win this game, that was, in the third quarter, when the weather was arguably at its worst. I don't know where George Pickens is getting this idea that the weather cost them the game. It's like, you just played bad.
I could maybe buy that if Pittsburgh wasn't, 1
also
hour.
a winter city.
Yeah, 1 hour east of Cleveland, and also an outdoor stadium.
If this were Miami has that excuse because they legitimately do play bad.
Yeah, I'd buy it if it was Miami. That was my favorite game of the whole year, though. It really was. The snow globe close game at the end was amazing. I didn't get to watch it when it first started because my Wi-Fi was out. So I was trying to figure out how to fix it. And then I gave up and I connected to my hotspot and I watched the game basically after it had already ended, but it was recorded. So I got to skip all the commercials.
YouTube TV.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how it ended. And I was sitting there at 1 o'clock in the morning watching the AFC North snow globe game. And tears were falling out of my eyes. It was the most beautiful sight for me in the middle of the night. I felt like the Ratatouille critic.
You and I both, man.
Mm-hmm. It was awesome. It had so much aura. It was a good snow game, man, with a dominant performance.
I don't get anyone that doesn't think that's cool. People that are
I don't know how people don't like the occasional change up. Look, I understand if every game in a week was a snow game, okay, yeah, that would be annoying. But these are a rare, unique, fun change up that makes teams adjust. Why would you want that stuff taken out of the game? Why are we trying to make football sterile? That's not what it is. It's a sport. I don't. I was watching this game and I was getting really mad about that take that people have. And here's the thing: it's just cool to have variety, is what it is. Some teams should play in a dome. Some teams should play outside. Some teams should be cold weather teams. Some teams should be warm weather teams. It's interesting to have the dynamic. Should every team build the exact same looking stadium? If we figure no, that would suck. That'd be boring. Screw that. I want to go to Cleveland Stadium and see that, and then I want to go to SoFi and be this is kind of like a mall, and that's weird, and it's all high tech. It's cool to have the variety. So yeah, I was very pro the snow game. It's cool.
And it's not like the football was bad when the snow started. I could get it if every snow game meant the game would suck, but sometimes it's a nice 30-degree snow game, and there was still the big post to Calvin Austin for the touchdown. There was the Jameis Winston balling out, like throwing the ball, the play action to the backup tight end, that got completed. It's not like the offenses totally got
Both teams could throw the ball. I mean, Wilson almost went for 300 yards on good efficiency. He didn't have some terrible game, and Winston aired it out too.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I thought the storyline of this one was Myles Garrett.
Yes. Oh my God. Theo, I love the video that you posted. Because I was going to post specifically, I think it was the third sack that he had, where he stunted. Originally, I thought it was 3 gaps. I looked back. He actually stunted 4 gaps over to get this sack, but 2 of them kind of got like smushed together. But he basically stunted 4 gaps over to get a sack on Russell Wilson. I'm like, this guy is a freak. No one else is built like this.
He's a super soldier, man. And on that play, he started his feet and he raised his arms, and Zach Frazier dropped his anchor, preparing for his bull rush. And then he just went right around him, just in a blink. Garrett was doubled on every single play of that game, every single pass rush, that is. And they didn't run at him either. So every rush was away from him. Every pass set was doubled. And yet he still has 8 pressures, 3 sacks, a forced fumble. Like, what can you do at that point? It's as dominant as it gets for a defensive player when all that attention is on you and you still wreck the game. It is a 100th percentile, top tier performance from anybody in NFL history. It's just as good as it gets is that performance against that kind of attention, when they do everything possible to take you out of the game and you still ruin it.
Yeah. And the Steelers have good players like matched up. Like, this wasn't like he was going up against.
Yeah, like Darnell Washington is your chipper. Like, he's one of the better blockers, maybe the best blocker in the league at the tight end position. And
Frazier's been having a great season at center, and he just like made him look silly. I thought it was interesting. The Browns had a very similar game plan for TJ Watt, who ended up being basically silent.
He had 0 pass rush wins.
Wow. I thought it was cool. Even when the Browns went empty, they would keep like the running back close. Like, they had a play where they motioned Jerome Ford out into the slot, but they had him close enough just to chip TJ Watt. I always felt like that was really, really good scheming there.
TJ Watt is having kind of an interesting season because his pressure rate this year is really low. He's outside of the top 70 in pressure rate this year, but he has a ton of forced fumbles. He has a ton of quarterback hits. Like, he ranks 70th in pressures, but he ranks like 2nd in quarterback hits or something like that. So when he is getting pressure, they're very impactful pressures in the fourth quarters of games, really making his presence felt for the QB, like taking the ball away. He has more disruptive running plays than Myles Garrett does, and more batted balls. Like, as per usual with TJ Watt, he does end up stuffing the stat sheet like some way, somehow. But it's just tough to look past the fact that Myles Garrett is 2nd in sacks now, 1st in pressure rate, 2nd in win rate behind Aiden Hutchinson, who's out for the year. So basically 1st in win rate for Myles Garrett, while facing more double teams than everybody else. Like, I just think that it doesn't really get better than him. I'm always on that train, and I feel bad because it always ends up with me slandering TJ Watt because his fans get so sensitive about Garrett winning anything, and they think TJ's been robbed so many times. And they're like, well, he should be able to rob him back this year. But it's like, I don't think so.
TJ is kind of slightly in a different role than Garrett. Like, I don't know. It feels like Garrett is the pure pass rusher. Like, you don't ask him to do anything else. Now, where you ask him to rush from can vary. And usually it's just matchup based and them trying to get the best look possible. But Watt, I feel like his job is kind of to be the anchor of the defense. And it's like, you kind of just have to feel things out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, his job is more of a linebacker than it is. Like, he does kind of exist off ball sometimes. And even when he's lined up down, he'll kind of sit, it looks like. And I even noticed that in the Browns game where, like, he wouldn't really come off screaming off the edge like he sometimes does. He would just sit there and just kind of feel things out. And if Winston would come at him, he would just kind of like try and contain the edge a little bit. But it does feel like they do kind of do slightly different things sometimes. So I wonder if that's, I mean, not even wonder. I mean, that feels like why his pass rush numbers aren't as high as they normally are.
Yeah.
But yeah, good game, good win.
That'll be the one good thing I say about TJ Watt.
He's a good player. I just think Garrett is kind of undeniable. He's just moves in a different way than everybody else, and it's hard to overstate exactly what that can get you. And I think it gives him so much gravity on every single play where it's like he can just torch you in the first 3 steps and get around you. Like, I think when that's in a quarterback's head, it just makes them act differently than it does with everybody else. And I think Parsons has that as well. I think those two are your best pass rushers, but just because, not only because of the production they get, but just how quickly they live in your backfield. It's tough to deal with.
It really is. But yeah, the Browns got a win. They're not out of the playoff. They're not out of the playoff race.
Oh my God.
Come on, buddy.
Let me dream, man. Let me have a little bit of hope. 3-8, there's a chance. No.
Yeah. Tough one for the Steelers to lose with their schedule looking like Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals going forward. It would have been nice for them to cushion that lead a little bit more against the 2-8 Browns, but they didn't.
This is the hardest stretch of their schedule. It's like I think they can definitely win a large portion of them. They've already beaten the Ravens once. And like the Bengals obviously have one of the worst defenses in football, so there's no reason to believe they couldn't even beat them twice. But it's going to be tough. It's not going to be. They're not going to have any gimmies going forward. But let's talk about another 3-8 team that almost got a win today, but I still feel it was an optimistic game. Matthew Sponhour, your Carolina Panthers. 27-30, one of 3 teams to score 25 points or more against the Kansas City Chiefs this year, the Bengals and Bills being the other 2. How do you feel?
I didn't know that stat was the case.
It is.
Obviously, like, the big positive here is that Bryce Young had by far his best game ever. This is the first time to me where he has looked like the first overall pick. He has looked like that level of guy. His accuracy has been phenomenal for a couple of weeks, but in this game in particular. But not only that, throwing with anticipation. He doesn't have maybe the hugest arm ever, right? And I think the way that you make up for that in the NFL is with this elite accuracy that he's showcased recently, and it makes me really excited for him. And it's not just like the down the sideline throws, right? Where it's nice, it's good, and don't get me wrong, he had some down the sideline throws that were ridiculous. His placement on those has been incredible the last few weeks. But it's stuff layered over the middle, and you know, somebody's breaking and he's going to throw the ball and hit them perfectly in stride. It was great stuff to see from him. I mean, he was throwing it everywhere. They were working in everything. It was fantastic. But I would say far more importantly than the accuracy, which could have been a little worse today. And honestly, I'd have the same take. But far more importantly is the ability to deal with pressure that he showed today was phenomenal. When the season started, the first couple of games, he seemed to get sacked every single time he got pressured. He couldn't maneuver the pocket. He couldn't stand tall in the pocket and take a hit. He couldn't deal with contact. He folded when guys were rushing at him all of the time. In this game, it was the exact opposite. His pocket maneuvering was fantastic. He extended plays and gave the team a real chance to complete something down the field in a way that even if he would escape the pocket at the beginning of the season, like, you knew nothing other than a throwaway or something into coverage was going to come out of it. But maybe more importantly is, like, there's a play in this game where he's got a guy bearing down at him and he just stands in there and makes the throw. That's the type of stuff that I was really worried that Bryce wasn't going to be able to ever show at this level. Like, that wasn't going to be something in his bag. Like, maybe he could be better than he was the first couple of games, but because he's smaller, it's really tough for him to ever be, an NFL level athlete hanging in the pocket. Today, he absolutely showed that he could. Obviously, like, his numbers were really good. And we've seen players who are like quarterbacks who stink have games that are good numbers. Like, Zach Wilson went for 300 yards last year, right? It happens. And I think by no means is this BRYCE game, make it so where, all right, we're good. We have our quarterback for sure. And I don't need to see anything else. We still do. But it's incredible how big of a step he has taken from what he looked like at the start of the year, which was, the worst quarterback in the NFL, bar none. Not worse than Watson, not worse than Daniel Jones, the worst quarterback in the NFL, maybe including back. I haven't seen play that bad in the first couple of games. And today, he looked as good as anybody else. So and against a fantastic defense, too. So you look at the Panthers 5 weeks ago, and they're a team that we talked about on here, off to a historically bad start. Could have gone down as one of the worst teams ever. Truly, not an exaggeration. Now, if you're Carolina, you feel like you really have something to build on. They're not going to make a playoff push, but they've really got something to build on right now.
Hey, they could, man. They've got the Cowboys coming up.
Cowboys won today. Yeah, I didn't watch this whole game, but I did see the Bryce Young clips matriculating out of, film Twitter and film Blue Sky and things like that. And I remember before the draft, Bryce Young got commonly comped to Steph Curry, which made some people mad. Like, that's a dumb comp. Steph Curry is a basketball player. Bryce Young is a football quarterback. Like, let's think of a better comp, maybe. And I got that.
Tiger Woods.
But with some of the throws he hit today, like, you really can see why people made that comparison. I feel like where he just he hit those like backpedaling corner shots, like in the face of the pressure, and it looks like a basketball like contested 3 fadeaway. Like, he just has he can't exist shallow in the pocket and throw over that mess of bodies. But what he can do at kind of an unprecedented level is kind of drop back real deep and kind of fade away and hit those throws. Like, that kind of accuracy in that situation is what made him such an intriguing prospect. And to see that today, it really was encouraging. And I think it's hard to even comprehend the long game that we play when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. Like, so many of them are in their prime when they're like 30. And these rookies and these young players that we spend so much mental energy thinking about how good are they, they're like 23 or 24, and they're playing their 20th career start. And it's like, man, we have such a long way to go when you think about all the ups and downs that like Jared Goff has had, or like a Sam Darnold has had, or like the whole story of the year is quarterbacks kind of turning their careers around somewhere else. And I just find it so difficult to evaluate any of them right now, because it's like, you just never know what can happen and what their next stage will be. Like, even with the Jaden Daniels, right? He looked so good in September. Now, when was the last time he's looked that good? Or Bo Nix, he looked awful in September. He looks great now. How will it look in a month? Like Drake May, Caleb Williams looked so over 2 weeks ago. Now it looks so back. Like, it's just so hard to tell how things are going to be when the dust settles. And I think with Bryce Young, he is starting to draw you back a little bit. But again, it could go down from here.
Who knows? Who knows how it goes from here? I totally agree. I mean, one take that I don't necessarily completely disagree with to some level, but I'm definitely starting to think there's more to it, is that how quickly we give up on quarterbacks, or like how quickly you know about a guy. I still think, like, with young QBs in general, we tend to like just pretend that they're young and then they just will get better no matter what forever. Every bad quarterback is still believed in by like year 4, as long as they were a first round draft pick by their fan base, right? Like, there's a lot of delusion about young guys, but I'm not necessarily as confident in just saying after 2 years, if they're not starting to trend up, you know, for sure. maybe the take is still up. They haven't shown anything, but I think there's more wiggle room to it. Because, like, I mean, right now I could even say that Bryce has showed something here by year 2, or like a Baker Mayfield. He was great by year 2, but then he went down and then went back up. Goff had a good year 2, but then he went down and went back up. So I still think like you kind of know with a quarterback quicker than people expect, but there's more room for like ups and downs. You're absolutely right. I mean, look at this Bryce Young season. Okay. He comes in, worst quarterback in the NFL the first couple of games. They bench him. Everybody's saying that the Panthers offense is so bad that no player could possibly win with it. Andy Dalton comes in and plays a phenomenal game immediately after that, right? And then you're like, okay, Dalton's not bad. Offense is going to be fine. And then all of a sudden, he starts to tail off. And then Bryce comes back after everybody clowned the Panthers for benching him. And it turns out benching him fixed whatever his problem was. And he's looked like a much better player since, right? It really, really doesn't make any sense. And now if you ask a Panthers fan who was saying, 2 months ago or a month ago or whatever, what did they think of the offensive supporting cast? It went from Bryce can't possibly win with that to I like the young receivers, Coker and Leggett. I like Sanders, our tight. I like the offensive line. I like the running backs. Like, we like everything now. Now, it's not to say that the offense is perfect at all and they were banged up, and they still should have won this game is what's so frustrating about it. This should have been like an epic win for them. But their defense is atrocious. And the drops were killer today.
Yeah, I saw the Leggett one, unfortunately.
It's bad. It's bad, man. It's every game.
And I'm also seeing that Patrick Mahomes, very different. Patrick Mahomes was only pressured on 4 attempts today, which is
different.
Not great.
Well, he was sacked 5 times.
That's a good point. What is my true media telling me? Because, he had 4 passing attempts under pressure and was sacked 5 times. So that means 9 passes under pressure. My bad, everybody. Just erase everybody.
The Panthers started blitzing a bunch because it's like, if you just rush 4, like the success rate there for them is just not high enough. And then Mahomes is just going to waddle out and go for 30 yards or whatever. And I don't want to make it out like I'm mad that the Panthers lost.
You're allowed to be.
At the end of the day, I mean, Bryce being good and the offense being something that you can really build on is like more than we need, right? And that's what we're looking for. But damn, it would have been sick.
It would have. Yeah, this is the danger of box score watching that you just saw from me. Now I'm looking at other stats and I'm seeing that Wanya Morris allowed 2 sacks and Jawan Taylor allowed 1. DJ Humphries is walking through that door, though. I'm low-key excited about that signing for the Chiefs. That left tackle spot has been so bad all year. Mm-hmm. I think that Wanya Morris has already allowed more sacks than DJ Humphries did all of last year, despite the fact that he was, on the older side and maybe not in his prime. He's coming off a torn ACL, but I think that Humphries signing could potentially alleviate some of the pressure on Mahomes from that left side. I think he is capable of playing better than Wanya Morris, and it looks like he didn't have a very strong game today. So maybe we see that next week.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations. Maybe.
Yeah. Do we want to move on?
We can. Let's see. We just kind of briefly talked about Dallas. I just made a TikTok about this game, mostly about the last 30 seconds. The Cowboys won against the Commanders. Dude, they tried so hard to lose. They tried so freaking hard to lose. So first, defense is out there. They give up an 86-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin. Mind you, Terry catches this pass, and there's like 5 Cowboys defenders around him. And he somehow just like runs straight and scores a touchdown. Luckily, they were down 7, by the way. Luckily, the Commanders missed the extra point. So they need to kick an onside kick. And they need to recover it and score again. They kick the onside kick. Dallas recovers it. And instead of just going down and kneeing because you're up 1 with 14 seconds, they score a touchdown. And then after scoring the touchdown, instead of going for 2 and making it a 2-possession game so that they don't score another 1-play touchdown and potentially tie it up again, they kick the extra point, leaving it to be a one score game. Now, again, they ended up winning, so like whatever. But it just felt like they were like a series of horrible play and decision making. Like everything was just bad the last 30 seconds from Dallas.
This fourth quarter was a whole game. It was 24-17. It was 24-17 in the fourth quarter.
Yes, dude. The fourth quarter of I at one point I checked, it was like 13-9, and then I checked back. I was like, oh, I've got to like tune in. This is a game, dude.
Yeah, I feel kind of useless potting this tonight because I just bounced around the game so much because so many of them got close towards the end, and I'm like, I don't know what led to this, but I'm here now. In the first, second, and third quarters,
Yes,
the Washington Commanders had 189 yards. In the fourth quarter, they had 223. So, like, I don't quite know what was with that, but I do know.
something with this Cowboys defense, man.
I do know that they are on a 3-game losing streak. I do know that this, once again, Cliff Kingsbury is getting found out in December, or in November. Like, as Christmas draws nearer, Cliff Kingsbury teams get worse and worse, and I'm very much afraid of this 3-game losing streak. When they lost to the Eagles last week, I'm like, okay, it's fine because you dropped 2 games to the Steelers and Eagles. Those are 2 of the top teams in the league right now. They got the Cowboys, the Titans, the Saints coming up. Like, that's one way to cure your, wintertime blues, your seasonal depression. But now they come out and drop that game to the Cowboys, and it's like, how far can this fall?
And not even just the Cowboys, the Cooper Rush Cowboys, man.
Exactly.
Like how
Yeah,
bad-
this version of the Cowboys is freakishly ass, man. Like, you can't be dropping games like this for a team that was like, I mean, first in the NFC, I feel like at one point, or second in the NFC for a good portion of the season.
2 seed, yeah.
I would hire Cliff Kingsbury in November, and then his first 8-game stretch of the season would happen in the back half of the year. And for the playoffs, and I'd win the Super Bowl that way.
That's a good plan. Yeah, I didn't watch all of it, so I can't really say. I watched the Terry McLaurin touchdown, and I just don't know how often you see anything like that. A game-winning play, or a potential game-winning play.
Yeah.
Where he catches it pretty normally, and just, how does nobody get him? Like, how does he?
There were 5 guys around. Like, I took a screenshot, and there's like literally like they've got like a diamond around him of
It was
Cowboys
like
players.
a Madden rookie. That whole game was like a Madden rookie simulation, because there was the kick return from Turpin too, where he just like came to a full stop and then like spun and then accelerated and scored. It's like, how often do you see someone stop their feet?
He muffed it, and then he just like
and still score
picked it up and just gone. I'm like, okay. Just hit like a spin move and scored. Yeah, I mean, it's rough stuff from Washington 3 weeks in a row of just not being very good. And they've got like Tennessee won today, and the Saints aren't like so horrible. Like, Are the Saints better than the Cowboys?
I know a game that would
so.
suggest yes. Yeah, I think that I would probably favor the Saints over the Cowboys still. So we'll see. I mean, again, I think I know, and then I end up not knowing. So I think I know that Cliff Kingsbury falls off, but maybe next game he just turns it around and looks great, and they go back to things just are happening randomly. I'm sick of making predictions, but
I totally feel you, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. The opposite of whatever you think is going to happen. The moment you're like, all right, now we know, you don't know.
Yes.
That's what makes the whole thing interesting. You guys want to?
That's the fun part of it, though.
How about another game like that? Did you guys watch any of Stroud versus the Titans or Levis versus the
No,
Texans?
I was hoping one of you guys did because I wanted to ask you about it. I heard that Levis absolutely cooked. Is that
he took 8 sacks.
Okay.
And threw a pick 6.
Okay. Well, then I was wrong. I thought he was having a great game. I thought that was a storyline.
They were telling me on Twitter that he was.
He counteracted that with some massive plays. So he stood in there and was keeping his eyes downfield, and it was a very boomer bust type game from the Titans offense because all of those negative plays happened. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were kicking the shit out of Latham and Petit Frere, which is not shocking. But he was hanging in there and he's keeping his eyes downfield, and he hit Calvin Ridley for a 60-yard post route. He hit Westbrook Akine. I think he must have run a double move versus quarters, just based on where the guys were when the camera panned.
All of his touchdowns are wide open, man.
And then Chigakonkwo caught a drag and then turned up field and made everybody miss for a 70-yard touchdown. So 3 just massive, 40-plus yard plays for Levis there. The Chigakonkwo one wasn't really like that, and the Westbrook Akine one wasn't very covered by the time he threw it. So it was, I don't know if it was the craziest Will Levis game ever, but it was certainly solid enough to put up a bunch of points. Tony Pollard had a great game. And yeah, it was a day of very high highs and very low lows for kind of both offenses, but Stroud and the Texans offense didn't quite have the same amount of massive positives, and they had ultimately the same amount of big negatives because Stroud threw 2 picks. The first one was a little spot concept where someone was going out in the flat, and then I think it was Mechie was just going to run a little, hook in front of the quarterback. And usually on those concepts, I feel like the wide receiver works kind of in towards the quarterback and tries to settle down a bit over the ball. And Mechie just ran straight and came back down his stem, and then Stroud missed him to the inside, and then he threw it right to the cover 3 corner. It was wide open. He should have never missed it. And then the second one, it looked like Stroud was getting a little nervous in the pocket, maybe like he was stepping up and he was just kind of jittery and threw to somebody who maybe could have been open, but he didn't layer it over the linebacker properly. It was a bit underthrown, and it got picked there, and he took 4 sacks. So and Mixon had, I think, 2 positive runs the entire game. So that's kind of your storyline there, is no run game, still a bunch of mistakes from the Texans offense, big plays from the Titans offense. And then Fairbairn missed a huge field goal at the end of the game to potentially tie it. It was a chip shot that he missed. He has the all-time record now in 50-yard field goals made in a season, and it's just November still, and he misses that chip shot. Brutal.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Really tough stuff. I'm seeing 1.6 yards per carry from Joe Mixon.
I'll have to watch more of the tape with this. In the Lions game, he had a similar bad stat line where he got stuffed all the time. And I thought going back and watching the film there, his vision was kind of brutal. Like he just wasn't trusting the lanes to stay open, and he would bounce stuff that he shouldn't bounce. I wonder if that was the same story in this Titans game. But the Titans defensive spending this year has not gone as bad as I think the record makes it seem. Like their defense has actually been pretty solid all year. The Tavondre Sweat pick actually was good, which I did not expect.
Yeah.
In the second round, thought that was a huge overdraft, especially with the pre-draft process he had with some of the laziness concerns and like the reports coming out. And then in training camp, like JC Latham had to call him because he wasn't showing up, and you're like, oh boy, like what is about to happen? And then he just total run stuffer, had his first sack today where he like he push pulled Shaq Thompson, I think, and just like Thompson just ate dirt. He just ate it, and Sweat charged forward after discarding his guy and got the sack. So him and Jeffrey Simmons have been beastly lately, and secondary doesn't allow a ton of big plays, and it's been a pretty good formula, but there's been so many turnovers, obviously, from Levis and company. But the defense actually, I like where they're kind of at.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I just think big time spending like that when teams are like in a rebuild, people are quick to be negative about it. And honestly, I was sort of the same way. I'm like, who do you think you are?
And to some extent,
do you know what it comes down to? And they're going to hate me for saying this.
What?
Either you sign a guy and he's good and it's a good move because it's a good move in a vacuum, or it's not. Like, it really, at the end of the day, that's all you're going to care about, you know?
Yeah.
It's not about like necessarily like your positioning in terms of like, well, we're rebuilding, so maybe we don't want to go drop a bunch of like bags. Like, first off, I'm not even really sure that like is that sound of an idea or process. But second off, like at the end of the day, if you're signing guys and they're performing well, like that's far more important. I know this seems like such a simple take, but truly, sometimes it's easy to overrate the process or overrate like the big picture when you're going to end up judging the move 10 games later, 12 games later, off of the little picture, off of how it works out individually. I think the same logic applies to like the draft or like positional value. It's like probably bad process to draft a running back high, right? Mm-hmm. But if that running back is good, it doesn't matter at all of a sudden. So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that Bryce Young having his breakout, at the same time that CJ Stroud is, having his disaster class moments. It's almost like they touched a magic football and swapped power.
Bryce Young is 1-0 against Stroud all time, so can we really say who made the right pick? But yeah, definitely. When we talked about Stroud this offseason, I brought up like a Harvard study that said sophomore slumps for quarterbacks were like statistically likely. And hey, it happened with Stroud. His rookie year is just a little bit too good, I guess. Just a little bit too good, and the offensive line really is just terrible. I think I'm not too concerned about Stroud long term. Like,
nah,
not even hardly at all. Like I said, we are so short on the journey through his entire career, and I think this low point behind this offensive line is going to rebound just like so many quarterbacks have from low points. I do think that my comp of him and Geno Smith before the draft was very accurate.
Yeah.
Geno comp. Yeah.
I think I see that still.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've got a couple of numbers here for the Titans defense, and that'll kind of wrap up my thoughts on this game and the type of season that they're having. I've got a formula that I made on True Media with some metrics that I like. They're fourth in this formula, and here's where they rank in those metrics. They are sixth as a defense in early down success rate. They are fourth in the rate that they create 0 yardage or negative plays. They limit explosive plays. They're seventh in explosive play rate allowed. And then havoc rate is a combination of like sacks and PBUs and interceptions and TFLs. They are fifth in havoc rate. So this is a defense that has performed, I think, a lot better than the average fan knows, because who's paying attention to the Titans this year? I don't blame you if you haven't. But really, they've kind of been tough to score on unless you're the Detroit Lions and your special team. and your special teams has the greatest performance of all time.
See, that's the thing that's really killing them is that their special teams suck.
That is very true. Their special teams
it's actually unbelievable. It's crazy. I think that's so funny for a team to have ass special teams.
It's so annoying. Like
you're talking to a guy who knows what it's like to have ass special teams.
Who knows what it's like to have ass special teams on a team that like overall is Super Bowl caliber too. Like some of these Packers teams like legitimately should have been like representing the entire conference in the big game, and it just doesn't happen because that one part of that game that like no one really thinks about just like comes back to bite you.
It's so funny because it's such a small amount of plays, and it's like, there's like a dude on that team where like that's his whole job. Like he's a special teams guy, and it's like nuking every single game. Like it's just it would suck. It would suck to be him.
So many people make like, and it's a
little funny.
It's so frustrating because it's like it really shouldn't be that hard. You have 3 times a game to get it right, and like still, I see DeAndre Carter, the Bears punt returner, just make like the most bonehead punt returning decision possible. It's like, how hard could it be to just like call a fair catch in that moment and catch it, and yet they still get it wrong. It's like. And the rate that you see punt returners do the wrong thing is just way higher than it should be. I feel like the scenario is not that crazy. It's like just fair catch it or don't, let it bounce or don't, return it or don't. And it's like they mess up that quarterbacks don't mess it up that frequently, and they've got like a million more things to worry about. I feel
right. It'd be one thing if like once every 50 plays, it's like you got to do it over and over and over and over. It makes it easy for one mistake. But like, dude, it's like you're training to do that and you go out there for like one play.
Yeah, but think about it. If you don't do it that often, it's like you don't have an opportunity to get into a rhythm,
Maybe like that's true. We are kind of.
All game,
how do kickers simply just?
Yeah, I was about to say we are kind of doing that. Like if I was returning punts, I'd probably catch it, juke the first guy out, house it. I mean, like,
and like punts hang in the air for a long time. Like you sit there and you have to watch it, but then you also have to watch to make sure like no one's gonna.
Myself, that would get the best of me.
Clock. Like, I'm just saying they do those videos of the media team trying to catch punts, and how many of them catch it? Almost none of them most of the time.
Fortnite requires movement, editing, building, rotating, and hitting shots. There are not positions in Fortnite. A kicker's job is literally to kick. Horrible analogy, kind of embarrassing.
What? Are you comparing kicking to Fortnite?
Do you get the reference?
It's the ninja tweet, Blaiden. There's no way you haven't seen that.
Bro, you don't know the ninja
I have
tweet?
no idea what you're talking about. Dude.
You've never seen the ninja tweet? I don't understand how kickers miss.
I'll never understand how college and NFL football teams allow kickers that just miss kicks. I feel like there has to be pools of kickers in the USA that won't miss simple kicks, or snappers that won't miss snaps. I don't know, man. It just seems so silly. I'd love opinions on this. He's right. He's right.
Oh, that's.
How does the?
There are pools. There are pools of kickers, and it's all the podcasters who are like, "What the hell? That would be so easy." All of those podcasters
there's 3 of them
could.
right here.
I know, but somehow they get all the guys who can't do it. Who knows?
Ninja tweeted this when?
This is ages ago. How have you possibly
You're
not
late.
seen this?
You're late.
I mean, this is like years and years and years ago.
He tweeted this
Really?
on November 30th, 2019.
Oh wow,
It's gotten a lot of runs since then, but
it's been 5 years. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary.
we are. You are
of this tweet.
You are a bit late, but better late than never.
I guess that's true. What other game?
Did you watch Miami versus New England, Blaiden? You said something in our pre-podcast that made me think that you
I
did.
started watching. I watched like the first half, and then it started to get out of hand.
That's exactly what I was at.
But there is something about the Patriots where I'm like, man, they can be so good, but they love to shoot themselves in the foot. Like, how many drives did they have stall out because of like holding calls or false starts? Like, it felt like every single drive would be like Drake May completes an awesome pass, or they would have a screen pick up 15 yards and then holding. And I'm like, So it was just truly a not his fault game for Drake May. He had no chance with an offense that just really couldn't get anything.
It sounds like an exaggeration for those who didn't see the game, and it really is not. Like, truly, every time they got something going, there was an offensive line penalty. I think they had, one on the first drive, like 3 on the second, and yeah, it was pretty rough. The Dolphins continue to look quite good. I'm scared of the Thanksgiving Day against the Packers. Chop Robinson wrecks the game.
Freak.
He is really coming on strong recently. You saw the speed, and then he converted it to power. To be fair, the guy that he was rushing on, DeMontre Jacobs, probably not going to be in all-pro consideration this year. All right, a bit of a weak...
Odds are not high.
Bit of a weak guy to rush against, but Chop Robinson has been one of the best pass rushers over the last month. I checked at the end of the first half, and he was second amongst all pass rushers in pressures during the month of November, that is. I mean, I'm sorry, it's late, y'all. But he was kind of my main storyline from this one, outside of Tua also continuing to stack good performances.
Yeah. I think they're a pretty serious threat. Do we feel differently? Well, it's the Broncos who still hold that 7 seed and they won today. It's going to be tough for them. I feel like, they're not a perfect team. I do feel like just Tua missing those games set them back in such a bad way, but they're clearly like more threatening than their record shows. They're one of those teams that maybe you could just expect to improve next year based off of better luck on a dice roll.
Yeah, there are some things I'm still concerned about with them on the defensive side of the ball that I think showed up today. Like, their secondary especially has some bad players starting, like Cam Smith, Kadarko, who is still pretty inconsistent, So you can and the pass rush, like, if they were to play the Packers next week, and that's a really good offensive line, and they don't allow many sacks, is like Chop Robinson going to wreck the game in the same way, or is the lack of pass rush going to kind of rear its ugly head? Who knows? But I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the offense. Tua played fantastic. Jonnu Smith is such an underrated storyline this year. He has been one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end, since like October started, I would say. He is number 1 in EPA. He is number 1 in percent of receptions that go for first downs. Like, there's so much double team attention that goes to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And to have like the best yak threat in the league at tight end on your team is so good for this offense. They just dump it off to him on a check down, give it to him on a screen, and he turns it into a positive play. And they did that a ton today. They've done it a ton over the last month. It has really taken this offense to kind of a new level. Jonnu Smith, he is one of the unsung heroes of the league so far this year. He makes them extra dangerous, I think. And they play with the personnel. Yeah.
It's a nice change of pace for their offense. Like, they do all these timing crossers and stuff. You think about, like, if you're playing Madden or whatever and you run mesh, right? You've got the drag routes that cross, and then you've got the hook that comes in right behind it. They haven't really had anyone to run like that route, and that's kind of what Jonnu Smith is. He gives them that extra guy. So, like, if the timing does get thrown off, because that's kind of what's been killing Miami, right? You jam up on their receivers, timing gets thrown off, and now Tua has to hold the ball longer. It's like, okay, these guys get caught up. Now I have a big guy as an outlet to get the ball to just sitting.
Totally. And I think that him and A-Chain being receiving threats did a lot to open up the middle of the field today. Like, I don't know how many yards the hook defenders allowed for the Patriots today. It was a lot, but I think
it was a lot.
It's getting kind of tough to ignore, like, those screens to A-Chain and those checkdowns to Jonnu Smith. You got to step up. You got to take them into account. And that's when Waddle runs the in-cut and kills behind you.
Also, I don't know if they quite have the players in that area to defend that as well as
Yeah.
some other teams.
But who does? It's when it gets going, there's not a lot of linebackers out there who can account for it all, and
it's like
all
Fred
the
Warner.
toss actions that McDaniel runs brings people to the sideline, and then they run the dig on the opposite way. Super effective today, and Waddle was amazing. There was a play in this game, corner route. Tua drops back. He begins to throw it really soon, obviously, like he always does. Waddle is like fighting through outside leverage contact. Tua throws it anyway, even though he's totally walled off. While the ball is in the air, Waddle fights through the wall and then like makes a diving catch like an inch above the ground. Like the ball was pretty severely underthrown, and he was able to work through it and dive. And it's like, how do you stop that? You had the perfect play call. You had the perfect leverage. It wasn't a great throw, and he still came up with it. Another big slot fade he had, I thought, was a bit underthrown, and he worked back to it. So as per usual, the Tua arm strength is not necessarily the craziest, but you got the wide receivers who can kind of make him right. And then I don't want to be a Tua slanderer in this game, though. He played well. He avoided the big time interception that kind of crushed him last year a lot of the time. And yeah, he was seeing the field really well and getting the ball where it needed to go. And even though some were underthrown, it doesn't mean that he had a bad game by any stretch. I think he had a really good game. But Waddle's ridiculous.
Threw 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. Kind of hard to have a bad game with those kind of numbers.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I sit with Tua. I think he definitely has some limitations, but he's a very good quarterback.
I think as long as he's avoiding the big time picks. Like last year, he was really high in all the efficiency metrics, but when I did my interception review, like he scored so badly. Like there are so many just threes where he didn't read the coverage or he forced it or the throw was off. And then they didn't win any big games last year. And this year, over the past few weeks, he's played the Bills and he didn't have, 2 terrible picks like he did week 18 last year. He played the Patriots and he didn't throw it right to Kyle Duggar's chest like he did last year. So, and it's November, and I get that they were in Miami today, but the team is playing well. So that makes me think like maybe this is a different Tua and a more dangerous Tua in the back half of the season. But at the same time, like they haven't played a game that's really been too crucial yet. They're working their way back from the basement. They did end up losing against the Bills. Like when will Tua come in and win a really big game before we start like crowning him as an elite quarterback, despite the fact that he's played so well since coming back from the concussion?
Mm-hmm. They're like the only team in the AFC playoff race. You know what I mean? Like it's that Broncos versus Dolphins. I mean, I guess hypothetically, like, you could see one of those other wild card teams really fall apart. But after that, you get Colts, who are 5-7. We talked about this last episode.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
the Colts lost today.
It's a short playoff race in the AFC. It's weird.
It is. Yeah, the Colts were in it, but a loss today to the Lions makes it a much harder climb.
Yeah. I have a little bit to say about this game. Mostly, it felt a lot like watching Drake May, watching Anthony Richardson.
It's the exact same game.
He made a great play, and it was a penalty, and it's called back, and that was pretty much the whole of it. I made a video about it on TikTok. The Lions' defense continues to really impress. They held the Colts' offense without a touchdown today. That's the first time in Richardson's career as a starter that the offense didn't put a touchdown on the board. Zadarius Smith has been balling out the last 2 weeks, and that is a big deal. They survived the Kindle Vildor game, and the defense still was dominant. So it's starting to look more and more legit. I'm still worried. I'm still like, I don't know. But if Zadarius can come in and
crop up anytime.
But Aleem McNeil has been unbelievable. Is one thing. Aleem McNeil, like, forget about Zadarius for a second. That guy alone is playing like an all-pro level defensive tackle and just crumpling the interior. Then you add in Zadarius, you add in like TJ Reader who can push the pocket a little bit. I think Jack Campbell is playing at a crazy high level right now. Brian Branch is still a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Like, it's starting to be like
they got
good players, and it's like, damn, there's kind of like a lot of really good players.
It's like, and I'm going to start needing the second hand. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. I feel like they have a lot of players who are very good downhill. It's like Branch and Campbell and McNeil, and it's like those guys. And it's a shame again with Hutchinson going out. I mean, he's still the best player to go out for the year this season, and so it's incredible that their defense has survived that. I mean, it would be like the equivalent of like what would the Browns defense look like if Garrett was out? Like Hutchinson was set to have that level a year. I've said this 3 or 4 times, but I stand by it. It's insane. You don't see this very often.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, I think they had the personnel to be I thought they had the personnel to be an all-time run defense, and it's like, where does the pass rush come from? And Hutchinson isn't really part of he's a good run defender, but he's not part of the equation to why they're an all-time run defense. It's those 2 big bodies in the middle, and yeah, putting in like Onwuzurike at edge or whatever, it doesn't necessarily hurt your run defense. Like, that guy is a big, strong dude who can set the edge. So they still have those guys. That's not really looking like a problem. They can put Branch to cut the most dangerous side of the field off down in the box. So it's a nice ass team, man. They're top 3 against the run and against the pass in defensive EPA, and second overall in defensive EPA so far this season. Wow, with the offense that they've got,
Crazy.
It is crazy. So, and Richardson had a chance to beat them if there was like one good play that didn't get dropped or called back from penalty in the first half.
Yes, they should have had a touchdown in the middle of the field. I don't remember who it was that dropped it.
It was some tight end. I can't remember what tight end either. And
he had another pass beautifully dropped in the bucket that I think got dropped.
Doolin had one up the sideline he had separation vertically, and it was laid right out in front of him, and he caught it. He just couldn't control himself on the sideline and got only 1 foot down. So it's like, oh, what can you do there? You throw it, leading him towards the sideline, kind of fading away, and he just can't drag the feet. It's deep ball accuracy, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great throw, and he made a lot of great throws today.
Yeah, I thought he was solid despite the box score at the end of the game. I looked at it and I was like, damn, this is not impressive. But watching it, I was like, hey, he's having a pretty decent game, but just good defense and some unlucky stuff. And didn't end up being the game.
I will say, you actually, Matt, it's interesting you brought up, like, what would the Browns defense look like without Garrett? We do actually have an example of that last year against the Broncos. And they got absolutely slaughtered.
Right, it would be pretty rough. Teams don't lose high impact players like that and just be fine. And like so far, the Lions have just been fine. Truly, they've just been fine.
They've been fine. Okay. Totally. There's 2 more games in the 3 p.m. window that I'd like to talk about quickly before we get to Sunday night.
Let's do it.
So, did you guys watch Cardinals versus Seattle?
I watched a little bit more of Niners Green Bay, but I saw some of it.
Mike McDonald starting to lock in a little bit. This defense kicked ass today, kicked major ass. James Conner didn't have a single positive run, and I think that's the big storyline.
That is the huge thing. The Cardinals' rushing attack being so gone after they've been one of the best rushing teams all year, it feels like. And for McDonald to shut that down, that's huge.
Big Cat, big Leonard Williams played one of the best defensive tackle games, I think, of all season. Like, they tried to get him on a trap block, I think, and he just got upfield so fast that the tackle pushing him from the side just was a moot point at that point. He just creamed Connor in the backfield. It was awesome. He was abusing the guards all game. He won around Paris Campbell's outside shoulder as a defensive end, and then Murray wasn't very aware and tried to escape out the back door and just got plastered by Williams. So in a bunch of different alignments against the run, against the pass, he was dominant. So he is sick. Byron Murphy, I thought, had a good game. Draymond Jones is Actually, a good edge. I was like, oh boy, it's over when they signed him to a big contract. He didn't have much of a impact his first year, and then they're like, oh, we're going to move him out to edge. I'm like, I don't know about all that. Draymond Jones at edge. He had a really great game. He's actually 11th in pressure rate this season on non blitzes. So rushing, I was looking at who's the best when you just rush floor, like who's getting home. Draymond Jones is one of those guys this year, and I feel like recently he's really up to that number. Against the 49ers, he was great, and in this game, he was great. So you're starting to see the potential of that Seahawks front actually come to fruition, where they're deep. They've got a bunch of impact players on paper. Now they're playing more one high. They're letting them get more one-on-ones, and they're winning, and the defense looks better because of it.
All I'm saying, man, Seattle, they got a win against the Cardinals today. They have a win against the 49ers. The 49ers lost today.
They're first in the division after we sold all our division, man. Sold all our stock.
Are you buying your stock back?
Yes.
You're guaranteeing a dip. I don't know what to make of that division. No, but I agree. They're, it's a super close division. They're right in it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So yeah, that's a storyline to watch. Is like, can they become the Baltimore Ravens over the next part of the season? What did you think of the Packers game, Matt?
So like, what level? I mean, there's no Purdy, right? And there's no Bosa. And forgive me, how hurt is Purdy?
The level of concern seems pretty low. I think he's going to be back next week.
If he's going to be back next week, okay. But, like, it's bizarre that against a team like the Packers, no disrespect, even with your backup out there, you have no run game. You can't get it going on the ground at all. You can't get creative and make it happen and play a close competitive game. Like we saw Green Bay, who is, I don't want to say a super similar team to the 49ers, but obviously is sort of like coaching-wise similar tree. We saw them roll out with Malik Willis, who had been like really bad in Tennessee and managed to win games and be competitive and run a good offense. I definitely think like they'll be better with Purdy. I don't want to just say like this is who they are. But it's something that they didn't overcome. And I think this year for them is a lot of stuff that they're not overcoming as much as maybe they should. So my concern level is pretty high for them right now. I won't lie. I mean, we see the Lions look really good. We see the Eagles look really good. The 49ers just don't feel like one of the top teams, and they're kind of running out of time to claw their way back up. I mean, you still have, 6 more games if you're them? That's not that long, man. Like, you've got to start stacking up the wins now. And I just think they lack consistency on offense.
Yeah, I mean, they needed McCaffrey to really kind of be the guy, and he just hasn't been.
No, he has not.
He really does not look great.
Dude, they gave him a choice route on 4th down, and Xavier McKinney locked that shit up. It was like that Cars gif where McQueen is fading. That's what I felt like.
Well, he's coming back
outside, and McKinney just closed it down.
Are in the
and
same boat right now.
Knocked that shit down immediately. Yeah, Chubb, I'm sorry, buddy, but he's not bouncing back from injury either.
McQueen is fading.
It's a shame. McCaffrey is one of those guys who sort of beats the whole running back value conversation and rises above that for them. But part of me feels like I look at this 49ers team and I say, okay, well, you put a lot of pressure on McCaffrey to go out there and be like the guy, and you built so much of your offense around him, and he needed to do so much. And when you traded for him, you knew he was injury prone. You knew he was this type of player. And then you have a season where he goes out and you really falter, and, they haven't been as prepared as you'd like for him to not play. It's not that, again, it's not that necessarily they haven't been getting unlucky this year. They have. But they also haven't overcome things that maybe they could have to at least be in a position where they're not really desperately needing to make up ground heading into week 13, week 12?
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of what happened the last time they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. If I remember correctly, the next season they were the most injured team in the league, and they had this total hangover, and they missed the playoffs. So I think that they can, we'll see if they can bounce back from it again long term. But yeah, I think this year it's just too many injuries, and I'm very concerned about the lack of explosiveness from McCaffrey going forward. Because yeah, I think they need that. I think Purdy needs that in a running back, because I think when he was out and it was just Jordan Mason back there, as good as Jordan Mason is, they kind of need what the Dolphins have, which is like that threat out of the backfield that kind of brings these linebackers and safeties down to open up those digs and those in cuts kind of in that intermediate space. And without McCaffrey, those weren't there at the same rate. And with McCaffrey now, it's still not fixed much. So yeah, it is concerning. I was glad to see the Packers. It was kind of an Ohio State game for the Packers, I feel like, for me, where I'm like, at the beginning of the game, I'm like, we should be pulling away from this injured-ass team more than we are. Like, Jordan Love had, like, a sub 50% completion rate at right before halftime with no Bosa, no Charvarius Ward, right? But then they laid it on in the second half. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I can't really complain. You're muted, Matt.
I know, my fault. It was a very Ohio State game. We haven't brought up the OSU game
or the ASU game,
or the ASU game. Not to derail the NFL talk, but maybe to derail it a little bit. Do you guys want to talk about it?
I'll say this about the ASU game. When I was in school, we wouldn't have rushed it. We stormed the field after we beat Justin Herbert's Oregon Ducks. And I was leading the overrated chant in the student section, We stormed the field and we got the timing right.
And Justin Herbert overrated chant is so funny.
Yeah, we didn't tear the goalposts down with a second left. So these Gen Alpha hooligans just sickened and disappointed at their behavior. No. Good win, ASU.
What is
Scatabo rules? That's
what is up? Your guys' coach is interesting.
Kenny Dillingham.
He's a character.
Dillingham?
Yeah. He is he's angry a lot. He's fired up a lot, man.
He wants it bad. It's good. There's no reason why ASU shouldn't be a good football school. Look, you go to ASU, it's first of all a very good school, to be honest with you. Second of all, it's in Tempe, Arizona. It's like a fun campus with a lot of things to do if you're like a D1 athlete, I feel like, And the facilities are great. The stadium is great. Like, the weather is great. Like, what's wrong with ASU? You get to play for Kenny Dillingham. You get to be, I don't know, in front of a very passionate fan base, apparently. So I think they're turning it around. I'm optimistic. I think.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. This was honestly the first time I've watched them this year, because I don't really watch Saturday football that much, because I watch football on every other day. But I tuned in and I was like, oh, look, Scatabo's a beast. Offensive line balled out. I feel like when I do watch them, they get a dumbass roughing the passer penalty. So I'm concerned about maybe discipline on that side of the ball. But I was happy with the win. I was proud of the old Sun Devils.
They could win the Big 12.
They could. They're
right
in a great position. Man. They got to beat U of A next week, and they get their bid to the title game automatically, regardless of what else happens. Shout out. What I'm the most interested in about college football, who do you guys think should win Heisman right now?
I'm leaning Genty still, but it's dang close. I'm fine with either one of them. Honestly, the conversation around it I made a video about this. It's just so annoying, because you have these people who really hate Travis Hunter, and they'll be like, well, he's only in consideration because he's played a bunch of snaps. And it's like, no, it's because he's played a bunch of snaps well. It's insane that he's been so productive on both sides of the ball. Look, he's playing 130 snaps. But then I see some tweet, oh, it'd be like Taysom Hill winning MVP. No, it wouldn't. And you know it wouldn't. And literally nobody believes that. Nobody thinks, yeah, Travis Hunter equal Taysom Hill. Nobody thinks those guys are the two, like, just nonsense. But then on the other hand, you have people be like, well, Genty plays in the Mountain West. And it's like, yes? What do you think the Big 12 is? Like, is Travis Hunter playing top tier competition? Like, no, he's not. He's not playing in the SEC or the Big 10 either. So that shouldn't disqualify Genty. I'm fine with either of them, truly. I think it's one of the closer Heisman races we've ever had. I can hear out the argument for both. I think it's interesting, but so much of the debate about it is just nonsense right now.
I'm slowly starting to lean more Hunter. And I think the way that I've kind of talked myself into it is that Genty is going to win the award for best running back. Like, he's gonna. But there is basically no chance that Hunter has of winning either best award for corner or receiver. And so I feel like
best corner.
He could. I could see it, but I've also heard that there's another corner that's playing exceptionally well.
Who might that be?
I can't remember his name. But
Is the Michigan guy?
Michigan guy's like not playing.
Yeah, he's been hurt.
I've heard. I keep hearing talks about another corner.
A legendary, mythical.
I have no. I can't remember his name, but I was like on Twitter and it was like, these are the top 2 corners this year, and I was like,
a mysterious.
So I guess Hunter could win the best corner. But
He legitimately has been like the best corner. That's the crazy thing, is like he has been elite as a corner this year, and he has been elite as a wide receiver. And I think there's just no possible way that anybody, I guess it maybe not no possible way, because Genty has been so good when you look at his season compared to even other Heisman running back seasons. But like,
yeah,
to be an elite wide receiver and an elite cornerback, like, tell me that doesn't trump being elite at one position. Like, that's a pretty.
Yeah, it's just like Genty's season is so unreal.
Well, the thing about what makes it interesting is like, okay, Travis Hunter is great on both ends, but Genty as a running back is better than he is on either end.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I feel. It's look,
and that's true, but like Hunter is probably the best corner still. Like, he's still number 1 at his respective position. I mean, and like that's pretty wild.
What the Heisman is supposed to go to the most outstanding player in college football, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I go back and forth, and right now I'm like leaning Hunter, just because I'm like you said, to be an elite corner and an elite receiver, that's
he's got 1,000 yards right now, and people will be like, oh, so he just plays snaps. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. It's that whole argument, and even the argument where it's like, yeah, but he's not the best at either position. He's like the second best corner and like the 6th best receiver. And it's like, yeah, that's fucking crazy. All right, even if that is
crazy.
Even if he's not the best at either, like, that is crazy. That
like,
he's
there is not one like McMillan isn't lining up at corner and knocking down anyone.
No, he's not.
He would get cooked.
And Will Johnson is not, running fades. Like, he
would get clamped.
I can maybe see the argument that like other crazy athletes could have done this and like they just wouldn't because it's an asinine thing to think about. And like Dion is what's more unprecedented. Like, I can kind of see that argument maybe. And like I said, Genty is having a way better season than the average Heisman season statistically.
Right.
So it's like
both of these guys are.
But I think I lean Hunter right now just because I feel like I've never seen anything.
I want to see them both play their final regular season game. I do. It's close, man. I mean, it's a really good debate. And we finally get a really good debate between 2 non-quarterbacks. It's perfect. And we've got nothing. We've got nothing on Twitter. Nobody wants to really even talk about it.
Though? What if they did?
I would freak out probably online. I won't lie. Like, it would be so unbearable if, like, no disrespect, Dylan Gabriel won it. I don't know. Is Dylan Gabriel's odds still above like Genty's or Hunter's or somebody's? Like, they were not that long ago. And it's like, dude, no way. I'm sorry. Gabriel would be like one of the worst Heisman in recent history, I think. Like, no question.
I mean,
and he's a good player. He's a very, very, very great player, but
the BetMGM, I mean, on the BetMGM odds, Travis Hunter is minus 1,000
to win Heisman now.
To win
wow,
Heisman. So it's looking like it'll be him.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
Fair enough.
On FanDuel, I'm seeing minus 750 for Hunter, plus 600 for Genty, plus 1,100 for Cam Ward.
Okay, well, maybe I'm making up things in my head. My fault.
That's okay.
The debate that really gets me right now is the 3-loss SEC stuff. That one Heather, her last name is slipping me, lady is getting crushed for. But, like, she's, like, just hitting people with truth nukes about, like, a 3-loss team has a shot this year. I mean, there's not that many 2-loss teams, and people just don't look at the field. But I've already talked about that plenty on Twitter, so maybe we don't need to go into it here, and we're running long anyway.
Matt, you get 5 minutes, though, to talk about Ohio State, if you want.
Oh, yes. Dude, they look pretty good. I mean, this wasn't even really a good game from them. You know, they made, like, blunders and you know, penalties. Like, at the start of the game, like, they weren't playing clean at all and getting the red zone and, you know, first and goal, we run 4 times. Don't pick it up. Like, they were doing lame shit like that, and they still ended up crushing those guys. The blitzes that they've added in the middle of the season, incredibly effective, and they need to continue to allow Cody Simon to run free at the quarterback as much as humanly possible. I love him. Like, I still think there's issues with the team. Like, I'm worried about the offensive line, but it held up all right for this game, despite all the injuries that it's had. I'm worried about Howard's consistency, but I think it's undeniable that they're so much better at the quarterback position than they were last year. Howard definitely can miss reads. I mean, we saw the one on, you know, the mesh, I think, and they had, you know, Henderson out on that wheel, and he just didn't see it. It would have been an easy first down, but he is so much more of a playmaker than McCord was last year for OSU in terms of just getting it done with his legs, which Ohio State has missed for so long. And then just being off of his spot and getting out of the pocket and making a play out there that I think he more than makes up for. He's not perfect, but he's really good. And when he's playing with really talented receivers, it ends up being a winning formula. And I think Ohio State secondary, you know, they don't win every single rep, but they're still much, much more good than bad. The field is not very strong this year, and Ohio State is playing good ball. I'm starting to really believe that they could go on a run. It's not impossible. Now, we'll see. You got to take care of Michigan. We'll see how they look against Oregon the second time. On paper, they're not as good as they were the first time they played Oregon, so I'm a little nervous about it. But this was Ryan Day's best win since Clemson. It was, absolutely. And I absolutely love him running it up in the fourth quarter at the last. Fantastic play. I'm sorry if you're an Indiana fan and listening to this. I hold no hate towards you. I don't like Cignetti at all.
He talked so much shit.
He talks so much trash. Just like unprompted, you know, and I don't like his like Google me. Like, I really don't think that's that cool. Like, I don't think that's like some big negative on him as a coach. I just like, I don't like it.
You know what
much.
One thing I really didn't like was I was watching kind of some of the stuff he had been saying like leading up to this game, and apparently they had just like not been treating this like the biggest game of the year. Or like the biggest game that Indiana had been in what, 2-3 decades?
More than that, like one of their biggest games ever. It probably will be superseded by the playoff game that they're going to play.
They're like, no, this is just a regular game for us. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of do need to.
I can agree. I think trying to pretend the moment isn't big isn't necessarily the biggest play. That's not really the problem that I had with Cignetti. I disagree with looking at it like that. But I just think he talked a lot of trash, and I like that Ryan Day kind of answered back. You know, I'm not the biggest Ryan Day guy whatsoever, but I will say, like, yeah. But I will say, you know,
shocker.
I feel like people give him shit for like the Lou Holtz stuff. Lou Holtz talked shit about him and he talked back. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I feel like Day typically only responds. So I'll back him up on that. And I'll say that this Ohio State team could have probably crumbled a little bit more than it did. I think that they've actually addressed a lot of the issues that have come up with the team during the season. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot more. They have to go win still 5 more big games to win the national title, because I'm counting Michigan as a big game, of course. They've got to go win 5 more. And the name of the game here is not what is your best game, it's what is your worst. And I'm worried offensive line has a bad day. There's a lot of guys on this team who can still have a bad day. But at the same time, dude, I just watched how many SEC teams that I thought were serious contenders get walloped by, unranked teams. Bama, Georgia didn't look that good against UMass. So last year when Ohio State was looking like that, I thought there were more like really good top contenders. Like Washington looked great. Texas looked great. Michigan looked great. This year, it's Oregon who looks that level. And then I think Texas looks pretty good, but I haven't played anybody crazy, but I think winning games is winning games at this point. And then it's like Penn State in the rankings, who Ohio State beaten, who I feel like, is a super limited team.
Ohio State is a contender, yes.
Well, we never thought that they weren't a contender, but the problem is it's not enough for them to contend. Like, they got to win. They got to win at some point.
They do have to win.
And you've got Michigan spending big-time money. It's probably not going to get easier if you're OSU, and this is supposed to be your big team. And it sucks that the injuries the offensive line injuries, brutal. It's a killer. But is Ohio State going to look at those issues and overcome them, or are they going to lose because of them and then make the narrative again about what went wrong for them instead of what went right? That's up to them getting the results that they're supposed to get. So it definitely hurts them, but it can't be an excuse.
Fair enough. I didn't know Signetti was like that. He looks like a 70s librarian. I didn't know he was a real
really? You haven't heard about like the never adopted stuff?
No, I don't know that much about him. I know he was the Packers quarterback coach in 2018. How about that?
He's a good coach. He's had great success. He had great success at JMU. I mean, this season for Indiana has been fantastic. Like, there's no reason to be like, it's not good. And then they'll walk into the playoffs, especially since all these SEC teams
I saw the
blew
tweet.
it.
I saw the tweet of the video of him being like, Google me, I win, all over my timeline. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of a tough line, but you better win the game, man.
And again, it's not like it makes him an evil person or anything, but like, I like that Ohio State talked trash back because my team won and it made me happy.
Yeah. That's fair. Before we get out of here, we still got, I think, 2 more NFL games to address, which is, I think, the Broncos versus the Raiders was actually a very good game. The Broncos keep control of that 7 seed. We did see Ritter come in to attempt a game-winning drive and immediately get strip sacked. He's got that
offensive line, bro. It's fucked.
He's got that rookie Daniel Jones fumble rate where he like fumbles in basically every single appearance that he has.
Yeah, offensive line and receivers. It's egg play call. Fuck.
They should give Ritter the MVP off of snap counts. Really.
I think the main takeaway of the last 2 weeks has been the Broncos' offense, the passing offense with Bo Nix. Bo Nix has looked very good these last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But the entire offensive operation has been so stellar, I think. Bo Nix is part of that. Bo Nix has been feeling himself. He's confident. His throw to Cortland Sutton was cool for the touchdown. That thing hit the damn moon and came back down right. I watched that play 30 times in a row because it dropped straight down out of the heavens.
Depending on what stadium you're in, you might have hit a jumbotron.
Yeah, for Cortland Sutton. And Cortland Sutton looks like prime Brandon Marshall. That connection has been so stellar these last 3 weeks. The accuracy of Nix, the route running of Sutton, the contested catch art of Sutton. But there is no but. There is just and with this team. I feel like they're playing such good complementary ball. I don't know what it is now, but going into this game, I found out that they were number 1 in average starting field position for Nix in the offense. They're 4th in yards and points allowed per drive on defense. And now the offense is, matching that level of the special teams and defense. And the offensive line is like the best pass protecting unit in the league. Knicks had, I think, 24 negative plays or something like that today, or 24 attempts on negative plays, because I made that mistake with Mahomes earlier where not all of them are attempts. But at any rate, on all the Broncos' negative plays, the offensive line was only charted with giving up 2 pressures. So these negative plays aren't even coming with, like, because there is pressure. Knicks is holding it over 3 seconds per attempt and still has one of the lowest pressure and sack rates in the entire league. Like, it's unbelievable how well he has been protected this year. Cortland Sutton has been beasting out. Vele has been good, and I feel like every time he targets Vele, there's like 6 yards of separation underneath. Like, Sean Payton, I owe an apology to Bo Nix for maybe my haste to write him off, but I also owe an apology to Sean Payton, who I think is making things extremely easy for Knicks at the same time. And I think the protection plans have been great. The like wheel route with Mims out of the backfield for a 37-yard touchdown was like just an easy bucket, an easy explosive touchdown for Knicks. Last week, he was in the 96th percentile in terms of EPA. He was in the 4th percentile in terms of average depth of target. So Knicks is playing really well within the system. Because he's confident in the system because it works. Like this, and then the Broncos are a very formidable team, I think, because of it. Like we'll see exactly if Bo Nix proves everybody wrong and becomes like the franchise guy for them. That's a conversation. Like, again, these quarterbacks go through such big eras. Like, we'll see if he can. It reminds me of what we were saying about Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury like a month ago, right? Like, man, how is Jaden so well protected? Oh, it's so easy. He's so efficient on such a low ADOT. Now it's a few months later, and they've are on a 3-game losing streak. So we'll see about the Broncos if they can keep it up. But I really like what I'm seeing out of every unit on the team right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth getting excited over to see kind of everything kind of clicking into place like this. I will say, I feel like...
Except for Javonte, he had negative 2 yards today. That's one last... That was one problem. But sorry, go ahead. Like.
But it was like coming out of coming from the draft, I feel like our thing with Bo Nix was like, you know what? If you can get him in a situation where it's kind of, how it was for him in college, where the protection is good and, he has quick and easy reads to hit. And if you can kind of orchestrate that kind of an offense for him, then yeah, it probably will be successful. And I just didn't think we expected the Broncos to be able to kind of pull that together. But yeah, at this point, I mean, they're cooking in all phases right now. So give them credit.
Yeah.
And then the last game to talk about, the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley had 300 yards today, fellas.
God.
He's good.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Everybody's been telling me Saquon Barkley sucks. Saquon Barkley's terrible. I've bravely been standing up and saying, guys, no, I think he's all right.
But
where are the haters now?
We can kind of victory lap Saquon Barkley because...
Can we?
I think we can, because when we did our running back rankings this offseason, we put him at number 2. And I feel like that was...
we?
We did. We
kind of cooked then, okay.
We did cook, because he was averaging, a yard per carry on the Giants. And I just don't think a lot of people held Saquon Barkley in that respect anymore. And I think it was always pretty clear that he was trying to cook behind an offensive line, and he just couldn't. But he still had all that elusiveness in him.
Yeah, these were our running back.
It's nice
rankings.
To be.
Theo, you had McCaffrey at 1, Saquon at 2, Gibbs at 3. Matt, you had McCaffrey at 1, Saquon at 2, Hall at 3. And then I had Chubb
I
at
had
1.
Saquon at 2. That's all you need to know.
McCaffrey at 2, Saquon at 3. And then I had Jonathan Taylor at 4.
This was pre-ACL tear, right, Blaiden?
It's cool. We're editing out. We're muting Blaiden for some of those other ones. Saquon averaged 3.9 yards a carry last year. He's at 6.2 this season.
Pretty damn good.
He's having an all-time season.
Yeah, he's probably Offensive Player of the Year over
I was
Chase.
About to
I'm going to make a video about this and lay out a better case, because I don't. Maybe Chase is better, but I mean, Saquon Barkley is leading the league in scrimmage yards right now. He has 10 touchdowns and should have way more, but the tush push exists. Like he, I think, is having a bit more rare of a unprecedented season than anybody else this year.
I mean, Henry still has to play this week, so we'll see
True.
if Henry can. He might have a 200-yard performance himself. And
Henry didn't hurdle anybody backwards though. Like Saquon might have passed him there.
That's true. We're gonna let me get him on the phone real quick. We'll get that fixed.
The other thing I gotta say about this game, and then I'll shut up, but Milton Williams taking advantage of the one-on-ones. Jalen Carter had the highest double team rate of his career, which means he kind of arrived. But the fact that on the backside of that, you've got Milton Williams, who's winning at a really high rate, and Nolan Smith is starting to break out, and Josh Sweat is starting to turn his season around. I was really concerned about this Eagles pass rush over the first few weeks, especially their edge players. Recently, that just has not been the case. Like, their pass rush has been pretty great. Can't really complain about it. So everything about the defense is really clicking, and I think Milton Williams deserves a huge shout tonight because he was pretty dominant. But what are your guys' takeaways, if anything?
I mean, it was just one corner. It felt like that could get picked on.
Isaiah Rodgers,
34.
Yeah.
Is that Isaiah Rodgers 34?
It is.
But outside of that, they look pretty sound. Cooper DeJean, again, great. Nakobe Dean, stay hot legend.
Dude, his blitz.
Oh my
Really,
god!
like bowled those guys over.
Yeah, that was
Good week for stay hot legends. McBride had a big game.
Yeah.
Levis, Dean.
Our draft class that year was kind of generational. The Vikings punter.
Like we honestly did get like kind of a good number of like it's way more successful dudes than not compared to where they like even the punter, it's like that guy like wasn't a lock to make a team.
No, and McBride is like the best tight end in the league, kind of.
He's incredible.
I know. He's kind of like
and Alec Pierce is going to go for like 1,000 this year, man, or he's like battling for it, dude.
True, yeah.
Alec Pierce is having his like Deshaun Jackson yards per target year.
He's awesome.
The D-Jax comp.
But my Eagles take, honestly, is kind of the same as it was last week, so I don't know if I need to rehash it. Shout out Howie for doing more good than bad in the offseason, like really cooking. The amount of talent that he added to the defense is crazy. Mitchell has played like crazy. Zach Bond, probably the wildest story in football, honestly. It's up there, dude. So... Shout out. And then obviously the Barkley edition has turned out okay.
Not been bad.
This game also had me crying at the club because Brandon Graham, in his last year of his career, tore his shoulder, and now he's out for the year, which means his career is over. And he went out on top. He was like blowing up these Rams tackles.
Yeah, man.
Like just a vintage performance. I have been impressed with him all year, kind of in a rotational role. He'll like come in and they'll put him over the tight end and he'll like kick people's shit in the run game most of this year. So he's been good all season for them. And this game he was a dominant pass rusher. He had a hell of a career. God, it sucks that it ended like this instead of.
But that's how you want to go out, man. If I'm going to go out, let it be in the trenches, like.
True.
Just mauling someone, man.
It might help team morale to the point where it's a net positive. Like,
I'll ask this before we get out. You know, the Lions. We look at how formidable they look, even without Hutchinson. The Eagles are right there, man.
They still are.
If you had to pick one right now.
Oh, I like some things about the Eagles offense more than the Lions offense. Like, I guess just Hurts. I think Hurts is a better bet than Goff, I guess, is really all that comes down to. And I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and the weapons overall, I'm still taking the Eagles. And the line is like kind of a draw. And it's like there is no Hutchinson type injury on the Eagles defense. I'm taking the Eagles. Fuck it.
There you go.
Blaiden, you cooked with your 1 seed take.
I did cook a little bit. Someone tweeted, I was tweeting and someone was like, shut up, you're only ever right about the Eagles.
It's true, man. You've always believed and loved the Eagles.
I'm believing in I'm drinking the Eagles with the Blaiden cosign. Kool-Aid.
Yeah, if I say something about the Eagles, it's gonna be right, I guess.
I'm gonna stand by my good old lines if that's how we're playing this thing, though.
Very fair.
My girlfriend does have a bet for the Lions. I think she has a bet for the Lions to win the Super Bowl this year. So
Her and
I've got the
apparently
Sophia
everybody
Coke
else.
sign.
But
she has a specific bet for the Lions to beat the Chiefs.
ooh, it's not a terrible bet. But I guess I'm thinking about the talent, the pure talent on the roster, and I do think I like the Eagles more. But then I think about like Dan Campbell versus Nick Sirianni at the end of a game, and I'm like,
Right.
maybe, I don't know if I totally trust Sirianni at this point. But he has
That
since he shaved his head, maybe he's really different.
Lions schedule: Chicago, Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, San Fran, Minnesota. It's gruff.
The Packers had a better success rate than the Lions did the last time they played. People forget this.
Hang the banner.
Hang the banner. Let's talk about efficiency in the open field.
I actually think the success rate, like how bad did we actually lose? I actually kind of disagree with that. I feel like not that it's taking itself as an end all be all, but like that does very much favor or like not favor teams that just hit explosive plays, you know?
It is the problem with you need success rate and EPA or something like that because success rate does a nice job illustrating consistency, and I like success rate a lot, but you can't just discount the fact that like
you can
Jordan
be
Love
a
threw
team,
a pick six with like
you can be a team
10
that is
seconds
good
left
in
in the half.
success rate, but is certainly like worse than where they rank there because you're prone to giving up big plays or you're not prone to hitting them. You know?
Yeah. But let's wrap this up. It's an hour 40. Oh my God.
I know.
Well, we're not going to do a Thanksgiving episode, so this kind
True.
of suffices as a longer. This will get you through the whole week, hopefully, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, if you celebrated, of course. We talked about kind of what our favorite Thanksgiving dishes were on the last episode. We won't do the Stay Hot Locks in here, but we'll put out like a tweet with the graphic, of course, still. And that'll kind of just sit in place of what we would normally do on our Thursday release. So until then, and until next time, as always, we will catch you on the flippity flop.